Spoilers ahead!
Obviously.
Astarion is one of fan-favorite characters in Baldur's Gate 3.
Hello.
It's not surprising, his story is excellently written and performed. Astarion is also the companion who has the most voice lines. Astarion, like every rogue, has a tragic backstory.
Memorized a bunch of sad stories.
He's a vampire spawn, controlled by Cazador Shar, a powerful vampire lord. He was turned nearly 200 years ago. Cazador tortured, starved him and other spawns. He also forced them to lure people to the Shar Palace so that Cazador could feed on them. At least, that's what they thought. The truth was much worse. But we will talk about Scar and the ritual later. We don't know much about Astarion's life before being a spawn. He doesn't remember much either. From several dialogue, we can learn that he was a magistrate and probably one of those who don't have much mercy.
Please. Justice should be a harsh lesson. All the better to deter the next vagabond.
We don't know anything about his family or friends. Astarion was a young elf before turning into a spawn, so his position probably wasn't very high. We know that he never was in the High Hall, in the upper city. The city's wealthy nobles meet in this palace and it's the place where the final battle begins. So he probably was an ordinary official.
I always dreamed of walking these halls, you know. My dreams never included a giant brain or smouldering ruins, but I'll take what I can get.
Astarion was brutally beaten by Ger in the night. Cazador appeared and saved him by turning him into a spawn slave.
Well, he didn't mention the slave clause at the time.
Astarion directed his hatred towards them. He blamed them for what happened to him later. His anger is even bigger because the Ger tribe are famous monster hunters. You can point out that blaming all of them for a single event from the past is foolish.
I think you'll find I can. And there's nothing your bleeding heart can do to change my mind.
You can suggest it was very convenient that Cazador appeared in the right place at the right moment. This might suggest that Cazador manipulated Ger to kill Astarion. Maybe he was planning to turn him into a vampire for some time. It actually fits into Cazador's personality.
Maybe he was just drawn to the smell of blood.
Astarion escaped from Cazador control thanks to Mind Flayers. The tadpole not only freed him from Cazador's power, but also gave him the ability to walk in the sun.
My old master. Before the Mind Flayers took me from him. Before this strange, twisted freedom.
Vampire spawn are undead creatures created by true vampires. Someone becomes a spawn only when vampire sucks the victim's blood and gives in exchange one drop of their blood. Spawn are bound to their master and completely controlled by them.
It's simple. Just find a vampire that will drink your blood and turn you into a vampire spawn. Their obedient puppet.
Spawn can be free only when their master dies or voluntarily grants them freedom. Technically, spawn can become a true vampires if they bite their master.
People think the biggest threat to a vampire is a cleric with a stake. It's not. The biggest threat to a vampire is another vampire. They're scheming, paranoid, power-hungry beasts. So why would any vampire give up control over a spawn to create a competitor? Trust me, it doesn't happen.
True vampires change not only their appearance but also personality. They become corrupted.
Cazador Zar is a vampire lord in Baldur's Gate, the patriarch of his coven and a monster obsessed with power. Not political power or military power, I mean power over people.
Transformation into spawn also has consequences for personality. In Libris Mortis, we can read that spawn tend toward decadence, believing themselves superior to other living and undead creatures. They are smart, insightful, and charismatic. If they become free-willed, they might want revenge upon their master or penance for years of spreading evil. Also, those that can overcome or ignore their emotions may instead seek knowledge, power. Sounds familiar?
I've no objection to being nice, of course, once I have the power to bend others to my will.
We don't know what kind of person Astarion was in life, or how much his personality changed after the transformation. Important to notice, spawn have the ability to change, unlike true vampires. So, no, you can't fix Ascended Astarion.
There's optimism and then there's stupid, hun.
By the way, the skin color changes depending on whether the spawn fits or not. I should mention the alignment.
Little background if your moral compass needs something to point at.
Alignment describes moral and personal attitudes. Morality means good, evil, neutral, and attitudes describes the relation to the law and society, lawful, chaotic, neutral. Astarion, similar to Lae'zel and Shadowheart, are dynamic characters. They all have the ability to change, be better or worse depending on player choices. All those characters start from the standpoint of being quite evil, but in different forms.
Quite clever. And cruel, of course. But creatively so.
We need to remember that alignments are only the features, something which helps with creating the character. The interpretation of those alignments can vary. Moreover, complex, intriguing characters will always elude simple classification. People focus too much on alignments, and as a result, they miss the nuances of a character's personality. So consider this part only as a tidbit. Typically, vampires and spawn are evil. When we meet Astarion at the start of the game, he definitely isn't a good person and approves of many evil decisions. He enjoys violence.
Drink it in. That sweet, sweet chaos. Not that I approve of goblins, of course, filthy little beasts, but I do like a good den of debauchery.
Astarion acts neutral evil in Act 1 and part of Act 2. Then he can change. Neutral evil characters are selfish, pragmatic, and without compassion. He doesn't like acts of kindness or helping weak characters.
Turning your back on the needy to save your own skin? Maybe we'll get along after all.
I've seen some characterize Astarion as chaotic evil, but that doesn't fit. Chaotic evil characters enjoy chaos, destruction without limit, spread evil, and they are ruthless and brutal, so it is a perfect fit for the Dark Urge, Saravok or Orin. Astarion's approval or disapproval is also related to his own history, not just alignments. He approves of some good decisions.
You sound surprised. I am capable of doing the right thing from time to time.
Like telling Kennel Master that Scratch is not a property, because he also doesn't like to be treated like an object.
I can do whatever I please. He's my dog.
Saving Vanra from Anti-Ethal or Yenna from Orin because of his guilt related to kidnapped girl children.
What?
Giving Yenna food or gold, or feeding the owlbear cub, which may be related to the fact that Cazador starved him.
Wow. Thanks.
After Astarion's final quest, he will change. In this material, I focus solely on the spawn version.
Ugh, don't be so nice to me. It makes me want to be nice back.
In my opinion, after defeating Cazador, Astarion changed to chaotic neutral. Those kind of characters value their own freedom and respect the freedom of others. Some people complain Astarion doesn't change that much. He still isn't a good guy. Well, his change is more about I don't need to be evil than I should be good. What is more realistic? You need to start somewhere. First meeting with Astarion is intense. During this encounter, you will receive the clue about Astarion's feelings.
You wretched little...
After he puts the dagger down, you can talk to him about what happened in the Natuloid. Clarify that you all were infected by tadpoles. That you need to find a healer fast. His face expression and voice perfectly showcase his feelings. Astarion goes through a series of complicated emotions. Despair, sadness, and finally, determination and perhaps hope.
Turn us into... Of course it'll turn me into a monster. What else did I expect? Although... it hasn't happened yet. If we can find an expert, someone that can control these things, there might still be time.
He had hoped that something good had happened and he would be free. And after your words, hope, which he had, vanished. Like always, nothing good happens, so all that remained was to laugh. I will tell about one more scene because many people miss it. It's the first interaction with companions in the camp. To initiate the interaction, you need to take a long rest before heading to the Emerald Grove. This interaction is important and a bit funny. It shows that Lae'zel, Shadowheart and Astarion seek your attention and will be displeased if they are not the first one you speak to. If you don't choose Astarion first, he will not want to talk to you later.
Do you mind? I'm brooding.
Similar to Lae'zel.
Should a single tentacle split your skull, I will not hesitate to end you.
Shadowheart will be passive-aggressive, but will talk to you for a bit.
Doing the rounds, are you? You'd better get some rest. What were you two talking about?
If you decide to talk with Astarion first, he opens up a little and shows he feels lost and scared. He feels like that all the time.
So, we're resting here. Turning in for the night. It's all a little new to me, I admit. The night normally means bustling streets, bursting taverns. Curling up in the dirt and resting is, a little novel.
No matter how high your approval is, at the next long rest, Astarion will start his little game. You are his new target.
It's quite a sight. The stars, I mean. I could take or leave your chin.
This scene shows that Astarion is a terrible liar. You can catch his fake smile immediately.
You have your charms. More than you think.
The smile on his pretty lips is a touch too composed, a bit too perfect. He may not mean a word he says.
This makes sense. Astarion only dealt with naive, drunk people who are easy to convince to go with him. Then later, when he proposes to spend a night together, you can show concern. In response, he jokes nervously and laughs.
Thank goodness we're all such good, trusting friends, then. On my honor, the only thing on my mind is depraved carnal lust.
By the way, nervous jokes and smiles are his strategy to deal with stressful situations. He does it on many occasions.
You know, I've been thinking, and I think there's something I should tell you. Nothing big or terrible. Just a small little detail about me that hasn't come up naturally. It's just that I happen to be what's the best way to put this? A vampire. Look, I had a plan. A nice, simple plan. Seduce you, sleep with you, manipulate your feelings so you'd never turn on me. It was easy. Instinctive.
If you play Astarion's origin, you will see his dream about Cazador. Importantly, when Astarion realized that the voice belonged to his old master, immediately forced himself to smile.
You can feel the old fear turning in your gut, but you force yourself to keep smiling, as you so often did before.
Astarion's dangerous, flirty smile is fake. A few times we can see his real smile. This smile is nice and soft. One of those moments is after he bites Taff.
I feel happy.
First romance scene if you let him bite you. At the end of the confession scene.
But I know that this is nice.
And of course, in second romance scene, after defeating Cazador.
I love you. I love this. And I want it all.
After some time, you will find out that this white-haired, unhealthily pale elf with suspiciously big fangs and visible marks on the neck is a vampire.
I know. Subtle, isn't it?
I think that we need to talk about why Astarion doesn't hide his appearance. He is a model vampire, and if Astarion bites companions in origin, they tell him they suspect that he is a vampire.
Ha! I knew it. I knew you'd try something like that eventually. I wish you'd done it with a bit less enthusiasm.
Well, Astarion doesn't know how he looks. He can't just look in the mirror.
My face is just some dark shape in my past. Another thing I've lost.
He targeted drunk, not so bright people. We find one of the other Spawn's victims in the sewer. This girl is certainly not the brightest.
I know. Bit strange, isn't it? But then you have to be open to trying new things. The venue's called The Palace. Not sure what it stands for, but it sounds very exclusive. My date's supposed to meet me here, but there's no sign of him. You haven't seen him, have you? Pale, skinny, extremely piercing eyes. Looks a bit like your friend here.
Oh dear. I assure you, it's not.
I should mention, in the initial project, Astarion was supposed to be a tiefling. For a tiefling, hiding the vampiric aspect is easy. Before the bite scene, you can see Astarion sneaking out to the forest. Later you find a pig he fed on. You can see the full context of the scene in the Astarion's origin. After the nightmare with Cazador, Astarion realized that he can not only walk in the sun, he is probably free from Cazador's power. He isn't sure about it, so this is why he is so eager to gain power and consume tadpoles.
And then it dawns on you. If you're free to walk in daylight, can you be free of Cazador too?
After this dream, his first thought is to break Cazador's rule to not drink the blood of thinking creatures.
First, thou shalt not drink of the blood of thinking creatures.
In Astarion's origin, you can choose what he would do, bite the companions or go to the forest. With a good dice roll, no one will wake up. Okay, I should mention that Gale wakes up, but only because his blood is contaminated and Astarion starts to vomit. As Astarion, you can choose when to confess.
Blood gushes across your lips, but something's wrong. Very, very wrong.
Back to Taff's story. After a few long rests, Astarion tried to bite Taff, but they woke up. If you push into his mind, you learn that Cazador allows Astarion only to feed on rats, which was not only another way to torment him, but might have a deeper meaning. Vampires without enough blood are weak and can't think clearly, so they are easy to control.
That was amazing. My mind is finally clear. I feel strong. I feel happy.
Accepting Astarion's request really surprised him. He definitely didn't expect that. He didn't expect trust.
Really?
After biting you, he says, "This is a gift. I won't forget it." This sentence serves as both the opening and the resolution of his story.
This is a gift, you know. I won't forget it. This is a gift, you know. Thank you. I won't forget it.
He addresses his unhinged behavior later in Act 3 as,
But that first rush of freedom can be intoxicating. I didn't always make the best decisions when I first tasted it.
if you let Astarion feed on the enemy, you get plus 10 approval points. This is the highest approval you can get in this situation, which makes sense. You give Astarion full control and your trust. He can decide for himself, which isn't something he could do before.
As am I. I'm starting to feel a little peckish already.
In Astarion's dream, we can hear some of Cazador's rules.
First, thou shalt not drink the blood of thinking creatures.
So, if you force Astarion to feed only on animals, you order him to do exactly the same thing that Cazador did. You even have a dialogue option paraphrasing Cazador's rule. If it can think, you're not feeding on it. And of course, you get disapproval.
You're overestimating how capable goblins are of thought, but fine. Do it your way.
You can tell him to feed on you, which may seem positive, but actually you don't give him the freedom he wants. You take control and you decide when he can eat. You don't get approval. He isn't happy about it.
Of course! That sounds eminently reasonable. I shall wait patiently until you suggest we dine together.
You can see how his expression changes depending on it. Look. To trigger the alternative no bite scene, you need to go to Underdark before the Tiefling's party, and your relation with Astarion should be medium. Then when you interact with him, he tells you he's a vampire. It's a pretty funny scene, but also you have a chance to see him starting slowly trust you. At least he believes you won't kill him for being a vampire.
I'm still the same sweet, lovable rogue. My smile is just a little sharper.
Astarion was Cazador's puppet for nearly 200 years, tortured and forced to bring him victims, so naturally he doesn't want to talk about this part of his life. Each time he talks about his past, his voice breaks, he becomes emotional or aggressive.
Spite made me who I am. Now, let sleeping dogs lie, lest you get bitten. After 200 years of shit, pure shit, I think I deserve something better. Cazador sired 7 spawn, me and my 6 brothers and sisters. He always insisted we were a family, even when he was carving scars into our flesh. I was one of his first. Some of the others came years later. He was a monster to us all, but did take special pleasure in my pain. He said my screams sounded sweetest. And now that I'm gone, I don't know. I pity the other 6.
It's worth noting that he calms down very quickly. He really lost his temper only once, while confronting Cazador. 200 years of abuse causes him to become insensitive to violence or even to enjoy it. Astarion is selfish and doesn't care about anyone.
We killed some goblins to save some tieflings. The tally of lives didn't change much. But what do I get for all my hard work? A pat on the head and vinegar for wine.
He doesn't perceive the suffering of others as important. After all, suffering was his everyday reality. His selfishness is linked to the fact that no one has ever cared for him.
No one ever looked out for me. No one ever said a kind thing to me. You're the only one. Other people don't have a heart like you. You're... you. No one is like that.
Astarion was punished if he tried to help anyone. His most traumatic memory is related to the situation when he decided to save a boy. After Cazador found out, Astarion was locked for an entire year alone, without food. It's a moment when Cazador broke him.
You don't know what it was like. There was no way out. Once, in the first decade of my slavery, I found a darling boy who I couldn't bear to bring back to him, so I ran. Instead of hurting that sweet man. After Cazador caught me, the bastard sealed me, starving, inside a dusty tomb, all on my own for an entire year. A year of silence. Months of scratching my hands raw, trying to carve my way out. More months of not moving at all. Months wishing only for death.
This is why I personally feel like Astarion is the only one companion who really needs stuff. He doesn't have anyone. He learns what real love is and what relationships look like. He is the only companion whose quest isn't related to the main storyline. You choose to help him. You go to the Cazador's palace because you care about Astarion. You are the hero he never believed in. Generally, I'm not sure if that was Larian's intention, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a great symbol.
Heroes are half the damn problem. Fools that believe in right and wrong, good and evil. Heroes didn't save me from Cazador. Mind flayers did.
I have heard comments that Cazador's fight is not difficult at all, and that he is not as powerful as Astarion described him. First, we need to remember the fight takes place in the first act, when we are at level 11 or 12, so we are really powerful. Also, Astarion was completely controlled by Cazador, so he felt much more powerless than anyone who has freedom to control their own body. We need to talk about relations between Spawn. If you pay attention to details in Cazador's palace, you realize that spawns didn't really care about each other. In their room you can find a few diaries. Leon is Cazador's best hunter. He brought many victims to him. He does it to protect his daughter, which shows that spawn are capable of love. Violet harasses Yosen and tries to compete with Leon, hurts him by hurting his daughter. Daliria wants to use Victoria to cure herself from vampirism. Besides, there is a big difference between the Spawn dormitory and Leon's room. In the closet in the Spawn room, you can find only damaged, poor clothes, which explains the description on Astarion's shirt. A once fine shirt that's seen years of cuts, tears, and careful repairs. Clearly, someone cares about looking good. Only Leon has nice, elegant suits, which is interesting because one might assume that Cazador would want all Spawn to be efficient and bring enough souls for him as fast as possible. But he made their task more difficult, probably to torment them and instill a feeling of competition. The best one not only gets a nicer room, but also has access to blood. Leon's room, you can find a few jars with blood, others starve. Cazador put a lot of effort to make sure that Spawn don't feel connected and don't try to fight together with him. They all are terrified, scared not only of Cazador, but of each other. Cazador doesn't forgive mistakes and punishes them gravely, so no one wants to stick their neck out for anyone else. They don't trust each other and try to find a way out on their own. Cazador also is a part of the cycle. If you go to the Cazador's secret chamber, you find the skull of Veliot, the old Cazador's master. Interacting with the skull allows you to learn fragments of Cazador's past. He lost his only friend and was tortured by Veliot.
This skull is all that remains of the vampire Velioth. He turned Cazador, gave him the gift, and then taught him the rules of vampiric existence. Velioth recalls when Cazador reached out to a former friend. His punishment was to watch as Velioth drained his friend dry. Velioth recalls when Cazador rebelled against him. Cazador suffered 11 years of impalement because he failed.
Cazador killed his old master, but he never liberated himself. He became the new Veliot and acted in accordance with his old master's principles. Cazador has a little obsession with Astarion. In his journal, he records all actions of Spawns, but he pays special attention to Astarion, which might be related to the fact that Astarion was the most rebellious of all Spawns. Considering that Cazador was also rebellious, he might see his lost self in him. If you don't bring Astarion to the palace, after the fight you can open the coffin and detect Cazador's thoughts. You learn how miserable he feels.
These deathless dreams hold memories of a mortal life once forgotten. Of the boy I was, the man I became, the monster that will not end. I sleep but cannot rest. I live but cannot die. I am eternal, and I grieve.
When you kill him, he will say,
Consumatum est. Ego cecidi.
it means, it is finished, I fell. I have one more small tidbit. If you pay attention, you notice that Astarion doesn't like poetry.
My pixie dust is bright as day. My injuries can light the way.
It seems like a fitting punishment for a poet.
Why? Obviously, Cazador loves poetry.
It's a poem, a gift from Cazador. He considered himself quite the artist and used his slaves as a canvas. He composed and carved that one over the course of a night. He made a lot of revisions as he went.
Cazador discovered his love in unconventional way. You can read about it on his dagger. Look. So, if you ever feel sorry for him, don't. Astarion talks a lot about power. He thinks that power keeps him safe. He is ready to consume more tadpoles and use the necromancy of Ty to make sure he keeps his freedom.
What good is freedom if I'm always watching the shadows? No. I'll be safe when I'm powerful enough to grind Cazador into the dust. Powerful enough to do whatever the hell I want.
He's afraid of losing freedom and becoming a slave again. But after Act 2, he doesn't want to use Astral Touch Tadpole anymore. He learned more about it and what it entails. He's afraid to turn into a partial illithid. He doesn't want to lose his body again.
I remember how it hurt when I turned into a vampire. My body writhed and warped while I was utterly helpless. The grip of death owned my heart as it beat its last. I don't want to turn into anything else. I can't do that again. I can't watch my body be taken over.
It is worth mentioning that Astarion doesn't want to be a true vampire. He only wants to destroy Cazador.
Free and a true vampire, capable of creating my own coven. Yes. Although, I'd settle for just killing the bastard. I wouldn't be a true vampire, but I'd be free of him.
He started thinking about the vampire's power after he learned about the ritual.
The thing that will decide my fate forevermore. Yes, it's been on my mind.
Cazador used his spawn to lure 7,000 people to the palace. He turned all victims into spawn and locked them in secret dungeons for almost 200 years. He wants to sacrifice all the spawn, including Astarion, to become a vampire ascendant. The ritual not only gets him power, but also he will be able to walk in the sun. He won't feel hunger and get back his reflection in the mirror.
And being able to walk in the sunlight opens a lot of doors for me. Maybe some coffins too.
Naturally, Astarion wants this power. And if he becomes such a powerful vampire, he will finally be safe. If you romance him, he tells you he wants to take the power to make sure that you will be safe too.
I know you do. It matters to me as well. I want to be able to protect you. I'm doing this for you too, you know. To make sure we're both safe. Forever. For good.
What is interesting, after choosing the good ending, in the graveyard Astarion tells Taff that he feels safe with them. He learned that true safety is when you are with the person you love and care for.
I feel safe with you. Seen.
Probably no one will be surprised by what I say now. Astarion wants revenge. He was a Cazador's puppet, tortured for any mistake. Astarion thinks that killing Cazador, stealing his life's work, will make him happy.
Nothing can make up for that. Not even Cazador's death. But to steal his life's work. That might be something.
The scene references an event between Cazador and Veliot. Cazador also destroyed his master during the ritual and stole his life's work. All hate and fear made Astarion almost lose himself. To save him and stop the cycle, you need to persuade him, make him understand that power doesn't give him the freedom he so desperately wants, which ends with a powerful scene. When you convince Astarion to stop the ritual, he tells you,
You you're right. I can be better than them. But I'm not above enjoying this.
Which nicely refers to one of Taff and Astarion's conversations. During this conversation, you can tell him, you can start over, you can be better than what he made you.
Exactly. I can be better than him. Stronger. More powerful. More... Oh. You meant be kinder. Pet bunnies, that sort of thing.
In the end, Astarion has the ability to be kinder. At least a little bit. Convincing Astarion to stop the ritual gives you his approval. Some quests have an impact on central characters. In Astarion's case is the Dame Elaine's quest. If you tell her about Rolicon and help her fight, Astarion and Karlach will have a special dialogue about revenge. What's more, if you finish Dame Elaine's quest after defeating Cazador, a new dialogue option will appear. You can ask Astarion how he feels after killing Cazador.
Not what I expected. There was a sense of... emptiness. Maybe it's just hard to see someone else suffer the same thing. It feels unfair. Like justice denied.
Revenge will not make the previous suffering disappear. Actually, Astarion's healing process starts after destroying the brain.
One night, he tells you that these last 6 months of happy memories are the counterweight to 200 years of misery.
Astarion hates weakness. He doesn't have mercy for the weak, even for himself. That explains why he doesn't approve of many decisions related to helping others. When you meet Sebastian and other spawns, you can talk with Astarion. If you choose the option, this isn't you, not really. He talks about how pathetic they are, and then you can point out that they remind him of his experience, his weaknesses, fear and hopelessness. He doesn't want to think about this part of himself.
It should be. I don't want to be like them. They're pathetic. Horrible. They do not. That weakness in me is dead. It's dead! I have a higher purpose.
We need to mention that Taff can use Astarion's fear against him and force him to consume the astral-touched tadpole. To do this, you have to remind him of his worst memory when he was locked alone in the tomb for an entire year.
As you pick apart his mind, you discover his worst memory, that which brings him the purest terror. Complete solitude after being disobedient, sealed, buried alive, voiceless. Will this be forever? A year of horror, then the release. He will never disobey again.
By the way, if you tell Rillen that being buried alive sounds like adequate punishment for thievery, you get disapproval from Astarion.
A high and mighty type. Ahem. Oh, I've learned my ways and I'll never steal again. Happy.
The word freedom is the key to understanding Astarion. He wants freedom more than anything. When you break up with him at the end of the game, he won't stop you, because he respects your freedom, even if it causes pain. In contrast, Ascended Astarion doesn't want you to leave and tries to force you to stay.
That's what you want? Then that's where we'll leave it. Well, goodbye then, I suppose. You brought my dead heart back to life. heart will keep beating.
You will not fully understand Astarion's behavior without the word responsibility. Astarion not only regains control over his body, but also he is relearning how to take the responsibility for his actions. In most cases, he lets you decide what to do. In Act 2, he gets the awakening that occurs during the scene with Arash. He realized that he never stopped thinking like a slave. He was replaying all the steps he had known for years. The same words, the same gestures, like he never left Baldur's Gate.
The entire reason for my existence was to seduce anything with a pulse. And every instinct I have tells me that nothing's changed. I'm still just a means to an end. You made me see that I never stopped thinking like I was his slave. Even in freedom. But I'm more than that. More than a thing to be used.
This is why Astarion is so bad at lying. He kept saying the same thing all the time. He wasn't trained, prepared for various situations, unlike Shadowheart. Cazador doesn't want Spawn to be too smart or manipulative. They are supposed to be weak, easy to control. After stopping the ritual, he started thinking more about responsibility. He could no longer shift the blame onto someone else. His choices are solely his own.
I suppose that's the less convenient side of freedom. Having to live with the choices you made.
He reflects on responsibility and choice when you meet the girl children in Cazador's dungeons.
I'm not sure. I've been weighing my options. On the one hand, they're the key to my unlocking eternal power and freedom. On the other, well, it's my fault they're here. Yes, it was Cazador's command. I had no choice, but it seems now I do.
Do you know that you can meet girl children in the sewer after defeating Cazador? But only if you didn't kill the monster hunter in Act 1. It's a nice detail.
My children. My sweet ones. What have they done to you?
I'm hungry, Father. I'm so hungry.
It hurts, Father. The hunger. It never stops.
Please, do you know of anything that can be done?
Later in the graveyard, you can ask him how does freedom feel.
Exhilarating. Terrifying. Exhausting.
Freedom is something more for Astarion than just regaining control over his body. He has to figure out who he is and what he wants.
I need to figure out who I am. What I want.
Astarion used his body to lure people to Cazador. It was all his purpose. And this experience influenced how he perceived himself. Astarion thinks his only value is his body.
Yes, I suppose there's not much point to me if I won't have sex. My only talent. I'm fully aware.
If the Dark Urge romances Astarion, Butler orders you to kill him. In the scene, Butler also mentions that Astarion doesn't believe that you're interested in anything other than his appearance.
You like him for more than his looks, but he will never believe that. Why not make him a pretty corpse?
Astarion feels a connection to the Dark Urge.
Thump thump.
And he is really supportive. They both know how it is to lose control over your own body. How scary it is to know that this can happen again.
You know, I didn't realize you and I were so alike. I felt paralyzed to do anything about Cazador for so many decades. I gave up on myself. I gave up on any hope of escape after a few lashes. Mal controls you in much the same way. I don't know how you could beat him. But I do know this. You must try. The half-life of a mind-addled slave is worse than death. Don't become his.
Years of luring people to Cazador influenced how he behaves. He tried to seduce Taff or other companions because he believed it was his only way to survive. Astarion acts like he never stopped looking for a victim for Cazador. This is why his pick-up line was so bad. He's never tried to seduce anyone like Taff.
I'm with you. I feel practically alive. Yet I crave only to die again. With you. Every part of your perfect body whispers temptation. It's as if the gods made you just to ruin me.
Besides Astarion, we'll also encounter Pale Petras. Okay, let me say this. No one calls Petras Pale Petras. He's this kind of guy who made up his own nickname, and later he's trying to get others to call him that. Petras and Dal are located in Wyrm's Crossing, and they are a part of Astarion's quest. If you go there without Astarion, Petras will try to seduce you. He uses almost exactly the same lines that Astarion used.
Thank goodness we're such good friends, then.
Thank goodness we're all such good, trusting friends, then.
It'll be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I promise.
I promise you a night you'll never forget.
Astarion has two personalities. One is his charming, flirty persona, and the other is his true character. The shift between his two personalities can be seen best in the scene with Arash, when you convince him to bite her.
Sorry, but could you excuse us a moment? Are you actually asking me to do this? Trading me for some potion? Fine, I'll do it. Darling, I've had a sudden change of heart. After all, who could resist such a delectable neck? Hold very, very still.
After this situation, Astarion realizes that he never stopped thinking like a slave. He doesn't care about the potion, but Taff wants it. He realizes that he has become Taff's slave, and he does what they want.
It's all right. I didn't expect myself to feel anything. I forced myself to bite her. I'm so used to my body being used as a tool to get what someone else wants. But I'm free now. It shouldn't be like that.
Important part of Astarion's romance is the confession scene. Both of the confession scenes are brilliant, fantastic writing. The standard confession scene starts after the conversation with Arash. The secret scene starts after killing Yorgi and translating Astarion's scars. This is the first time when we can truly see the sensitive side of Astarion. In any other scenes, he masks his vulnerability using jokes or flirty lines. Part of Astarion reflections in the scenes also refers to how he sees and treats his body.
The entire reason for my existence was to seduce anything with a pulse. And every instinct I have tells me that nothing's changed. I'm still just a means to an end.
He doesn't want to be an object. In both scenes, he explained that he tried to seduce Taff because this was his only way he knew to survive. His plan failed because he starts to feel something for Taff.
Look, I had a plan. A nice, simple plan. Seduce you, sleep with you, manipulate your feelings so you'd never turn on me. It was easy. Instinctive. Habits from 200 years of charming people kicked in. All you had to do was fall for it. And all I had to do was not fall for you. Which is where my nice, simple plan fell apart.
If you didn't trigger any of those confession scenes, in Act 3 Astarion breaks up with you, in a really mean way. Importantly, this scene shows how Astarion sees relationships, like a transaction. He gives you his body and you help him.
It's a game I'm tired of playing. Being used.
There is an option which probably no one chose intentionally. Yes, I'm talking about this one. This scene hit really hard, show that you, the player, can be a horrible person and use Astarion. After Astarion realizes that he was once again used for someone's pleasure, he tells you how miserable he felt and breaks up with you.
I suppose it has felt different with you. I suppose if this is what you want, then I shall provide.
After stopping the ritual, Astarion reflects on everything that happened. An important element of his statement is that he sees Taff as an equal, as a partner.
When I look at my future, anything and everything feels possible now. And I get to share it with you as a partner. An equal.
Which is a contradiction of the vampire's first principle, allow no one to be your equal, and the second rule, power comes from solitude. To share with others is to be weak.
Velioth's first lesson is always to dominate. Allow none to be your equal. Velioth's second lesson is that power comes from solitude. To share with others is to be weak, and to be weak is to fail.
The second romance scene in the graveyard summarizes the entire Astarion transformation. He came back to life, which is symbolized by the new date on his gravestone. And now, he can start thinking about what he wants. What do you want? Is a question you can ask Astarion a few times during his story.
What do any of us want? Pleasure. I don't know. It's been so long since I've had to decide what I wanted. You. I want you.
But it doesn't end here. In the ending sequence, Astarion asks Taff about what do they want.
Is that what you want? Is this what you want?
Which completes his transformation. He finally starts thinking about others, not only about himself.
Of course! What fun! I'm going to fucking kill you.